Well, it's been 2 months since the protocol has been signed, and a lot has been said in the press and by different stakeholders, and also by tax advisors both locally and internationally. So today I have the challenging task of putting all this into perspective and see what it all means. On the face of it, if we look at it, one could say that the protocol is a bad one, especially if you are an investor and you were not paying any taxes before, and now you're paying taxes. Obviously you're worse off. However, this is a too simplistic view to take. I will try and put some perspective in the discussion, and I would essentially structure my analysis in 3 aspects. 1, the context in which the protocol was signed. I think it's important to understand this. Secondly, the protocol itself and what deal we got. And thirdly, what next for Mauritius. So on the first point, before we start any discussion, it's important to understand the context, because the context would lead to understanding some of the position. The tax treaty between Mauritius and India was signed in 1983, and it's been over 30 years now. And as far back as 1996, the treaty was subject to much debate, where India first signified its intention to renegotiate the terms of the treaty. Whilst there was on-off discussion for the last 20 years, the pressure has really been mounting over the last 3 to 4 years. And the pressures were coming from different fronts. One, it is India's move towards source-based taxation. What this means is that India was seeking to tax income where it was earned, or essentially where the economic value was being derived. So for example, in the case of an investment where a disposal of shares were being made, because the value was created in India, the intention was that those would be taxed in India. The second pressure that we were facing was in respect of the imminent implementation of GAR, the General Anti-Avoidance Provision, which would be applicable as from 1st of April 2017. And what GAR would do is effectively seek to override transaction where there was evidence of abuse, or where transaction was entered into with the sole purpose of making a tax benefit. And the last pressure was from the global movement from the OECD, the base erosion profit shifting movement, which was gathering momentum. And what BEPS was trying to achieve is target companies which was effectively diverting tax to low tax jurisdiction, diverting profits to low tax jurisdictions and avoiding paying taxes. So understanding this interplay between the various trends is important to understanding the context of the negotiation. But I think in addition to that, it's also important to understand investor sentiment, what investor was thinking about. Here, if we observe the FDI flows into India, the pattern of FDI flows into India, we'll get some insights. Over the last 15 years, Mauritius was the preferred jurisdiction into India, accounting for about 35% of all FDI flows into India. However, if we look at 2014-15 alone, what we can see is that Singapore overtook Mauritius in terms of the preferred jurisdiction into India, accounting for 30% of all FDIs into India compared to 20% for Mauritius. What that means is that investors were already factoring the changing landscape. And simply doing nothing was already hurting Mauritius and having a negative impact on us. Overall, I would say that there were elements which was inevitable from the messages coming out of India, that status quo would not be possible. And I think stakeholders, both locally and internationally, were already anticipating change. So if we agree that change was inevitable, I think the next question is whether the deal we got on the protocol was a good one or not.